Good morning. I send
Good morning.
greetings from the U.S. to beautiful Israel, and our love to Ganat and Sheldon, and to all of you. Thank you for joining in this Whole Health Forum. Ganat's a dear friend for how long? Almost 30 years, right?
Something, yeah.
And it's been a joy to know her and Sheldon. And I'm here with my husband, Lino, who you will hear tomorrow with his famous Laugh for the Health of It lecture. So he sends his greetings as well. Today's subject is about balance, about health, and about the energy in the world. You know, everything is energy. Einstein said that, and it's true. There's energy flowing throughout the world, all around us, every minute. And there's different kinds of energy. There's energy that's relaxing. There's energy that's tightening. There's energy that's cooling, and there's energy that's heat producing. And all these affect us. They affect our cells, our blood. They affect our breathing, our emotions. Some of these are invisible energies, such as thoughts, but thoughts manifest. And today we're going to talk about how we can bring the energy we need, because each of us is unique and has different needs. Each of us had different parents, different grandparents. We live in different climates. We have different physical conditions in our bodies. We have different emotions, experiences in life. We have different professions. Some are ballet dancers, some are lumberjacks, some are soldiers. So everybody has a unique energy, and the world needs all these energies. It needs all of us. All of us contribute to the world in magnificent ways, or we can. But there's a lot of suffering in the world, as you know, with illness, with the corona, with war, violence, hatred, racism. And I'm not going to dwell on the negative, but it is there. And we'll talk in a minute about how we can have more peace in our lives, in our hearts, actually in our bodies, and how we can take that out into the world. So let's talk right now about our environment, where we are. What air are we breathing? Are we breathing desert air? Or here in Asheville, where I live, in Asheville, North Carolina, we've had 3 days of rain, and I'm looking out at huge green trees. So each of us lives in a different climate, you know, so we have to, if we want to be balanced, eat according to where we're living. My husband used to like to say, if you're eating heavy meat, for instance, in the summertime in Miami, it's like wearing a fur coat on the beach. They're foods that are heat producing. So why not eat foods that are balancing? I know people in Miami who run their air conditioner day and night because they're burning up, but they're eating a lot of heat producing foods. Conversely, if you're living in the hot, dry desert, having moist, juicy foods make balance. And Ganat is very much educated in this way of balanced eating, and she appreciates this philosophy that she and I learned, and my husband Lino and Sheldon learned through our teachers of macrobiotics, Great Life, and they taught us this ancient wisdom of yin and yang energy. The desert is hot and dry, which is a characteristics of yang. And the mountains where I live in western North Carolina are cool and damp. In fact, they call them the Smoky Mountains because there's so much mist rising up from the mountains. So it's moist. It's great for some people. Other people find it too moist and they get allergies from the pine trees, and they're not comfortable in this environment. Conversely, some people cannot take the hot, dry climate. I personally love the hot, dry climate. I love it. When my husband and I travel to Italy, where he's from, we go down to Calabria, which is hot and dry, and it grows olives, probably much like where you live. By the way, I could totally exist on Mideastern food. My favorite grain preparation is a tabbouleh. Um, I make it from the wheat, but I also make it from quinoa. I love it, and I love the olive oil and the lemon and the olives. And hummus is literally my favorite food. My husband will tell you. I almost have to have it every day. So I love the way that people eat in your climate. I'm speaking to those in Israel, although I believe there are people in this webinar from all over the world. So we eat and should eat according to our climate. Then we eat according to our condition. Some people are hot and dry all the time, and their faces are red, their skin is dry. Perhaps they have high blood pressure. They're hot and aggressive and assertive, whereas other people are cool. Their feet are always cold. They're a little more pale. They're a little more weak, a little more tired. That is more of a yin condition. So yin is more cooling and cool, and yang is more hot, assertive, and aggressive. And, people who are hotheads, I'm talking about extreme now, people who are hotheads, they know all the answers. They want to control us. We have hotheads usually somewhere in our family. And they are know-it-alls. They're never wrong. I'm talking about extreme now. We can take these hotheads and make them even hotter and more aggressive. And then we have people who go into the negative, into the violence, into the domestic violence, into community violence. Here in America, I guess we always have had, but now there's a resurgence of community violence and aggression against others and hatred. It's unfortunate. You would think we would have evolved by now, but if you take the hothead to the extreme, you do have violence and harm. And the biggest extreme of that would be war, the huge violence against others. My family, the men in my family were in the Army, and my father went in World War II over to Europe, and he saw the concentration camps and was there. He saw that and told us about it. And war is horrible. I mean, there's no even words. There are not words for it. My other brother, John, was in Vietnam. And war is totally, well, we feel defensively it's necessary, but war is the extreme of yang. And the aggression against another is extreme. Switching over to the yin people are more passive. They can be extremely so passive that they're lazy. They just can't get it together. So yin and yang is a spectrum. None of us is extreme one way or another. And we can change throughout the day. Ganat knows this. We can be yin and relaxed one part of the day, and then we can be rushing around, accomplishing our task another part of the day. So I hope this general description of yin and yang is understandable to you. I'm going to focus the yin and yang today on foods. Of all the things in the world that we can control, one of the most important and actually easiest things to control is food. It's there, we can make choices. We're fortunate to live in societies where we can choose our foods. It wasn't so long ago people had to grow everything, and the farmers struggled to produce what they needed. And as you know, all of our cultures went through periods of starvation. Now we roll a cart through the grocery store, and we're very, very blessed to have such a selection of foods. And we hope that this will continue. I just heard that Prince Charles in England is asking people who are out of work, please go pick the fruits and vegetables. So in this pandemic, people are having to step up and change some of their ways, and some are going back to being farmers. So we are blessed to have abundance. So let's talk about foods, because foods are vitally, vitally important. They're not just entertainment, and they're not just for the taste. They're making your blood. Foods make your blood. They, in turn, make your cells. The blood makes your cells. Then the blood and the cells make your tissue, your organs. Food also affects your emotions. If you're very weak and even get to anemia, which is extreme, you're very fatigued, and people do die of blood diseases like leukemia. Conversely, on the other end of the spectrum with yang, if you're young and tight and red-faced and high blood pressure, you're more apt to have diseases such as high blood pressure, stroke, and that sort of disease. So there are diseases on the spectrum as well. And foods are very important for preventing disease, because if you're balanced in your kitchens, in your home, with the foods you choose to eat, you're less prone to develop diseases. In fact, it's said by the CDC that most diseases are preventable. Diabetes type 2, preventable. Heart disease, preventable. Many cancers, preventable. So foods are vital, and foods have a lot to do with all kinds of aspects of your own health, from emotions to your health and your happiness. So let's talk about yin. Yin foods we'll start with. Yin has beautiful aspects to it. Yin is moist, it's cooling, it's refreshing. Goodness knows we need that. We need it more in the summer, or when it's hot out, or when we are hot. What's happened in the modern world, though, is we're living under air conditioning, and that's very drying. So we have to be aware of hydrating with moist beverages, and with fruits and vegetables, which are more yin. They're more relaxing. They help the digestion, and they help us to not be tight in the muscles, tight in our thinking, tight in our condition. The heart needs to open and relax and then beat. That's another yin and yang in the body. Relaxing and beating, relaxing, beating, opening and contracting. So that's another aspect of this force, this life force that runs through our bodies. So when we eat foods that are juicy and fresh and full of vitality, then we gain that energy from those foods. Then I'm going to swing over to yang foods. Yang foods are heat producing, more tightening. You could call it strengthening, but beware of just thinking that the opposite of relaxation is strengthening. But they tend to be more, they give you more of a boost of energy, sometimes too much. People get too hyper. They, again, can get too assertive. So you look at your emotions and choose your foods accordingly. Foods that are too contracting are excess animal protein. Animals are extremely vital beings, and they have extreme energy. And when they are consumed, very dense, intense energy goes inside us. And sometimes we don't know what to do with it. For instance, chickens. People have started eating a lot of chicken thinking that that's healthier than red meat. And there are aspects to it that are healthier than red meat. But chickens are very hot animals. They're heat producing. They're very active, hyperactive. So you see a lot of hyperactivity in children. Children are having to take medications to even calm down enough to study and to read. I was a public school teacher for 6 years, and I had maybe 2 students out of 150 who were hyperactive. Today, I understand the children line up down the hallway to get medication for their hyperactivity. I believe that a lot of this is because people are feeding their children these chicken nuggets, hamburgers, too much meat, and too much salt. Salt is very contractive. When we eat too much contractive or yang foods to make balance, then we want the yin foods. We want the sodas, the sugar, and then extreme, we want the alcohol. Extreme from alcohol, if you go up the spectrum of yin, then it gets into drugs. People have to take medication to sleep. So do you see how yin and yang affects your sleep? It affects your digestion, everything. When we're though naturally relaxed and balanced, we put our heads down on the pillow at night and we go into deep sleep. But sleep is a huge problem for today's culture. Billions of dollars in medications are purchased each year for sleep because people can't relax. And one of the reasons is they're eating foods that are too active, too hot, too, and I don't mean spicy hot, but I mean heat producing, such as animal foods and salt and things like hard baked food. Crackers are very salty and hard. I tell my students, if you can whack your food on the counter and hear it, if it makes a whacking sound, it's very hard. And that creates hardness in the body. How many people have tight muscles? They can't sleep at night. They're wound up. They're irritable. All these are characteristics of having too salty or yang characteristic foods. A lot of us love chips. I do. I'm a salt lover. I love salty chips, salty popcorn. And I don't mean too much salt, but enough salt to make it good. And, but I have to resist, because if I have that, my ankles can swell, I retain water, I don't feel as flexible. I'm a yoga practitioner, and I notice that if I eat foods that are too hard and salty, like, again, the hard crackers that we all love, believe me, and then if you get into like pretzels and other baked goods that are hard and salty, they make our muscles hard and salty. The liver controls the muscles. And in macrobiotic education, we learned that each organ controls certain things. So many people have stiff backs, back pain, pain in their legs, pain in the body that's from stagnation. So look at what you eat. Look at what you're choosing for yourself. Are you choosing relaxing, moist food, or are you choosing this hard, dry food? And I know people like hard, these crackers, because it's easy to go in your kitchen, take out the box, open it up, and you have crackers. And other convenient foods that unfortunately don't always make balance. I tell people have fresh carrots with your hummus, have salad, plenty of wonderful vegetables to eat with your food. It doesn't always have to be something hard and salty. So look into this. If you are experience tightness in the back of your neck, which is gallbladder points are back there. If you're tight, if you can't sleep, look at your salt in your animal food. Okay, so let's look at the grains too. Grains are in the middle. They're balanced, whole grains. All the cultures of the world developed through eating whole grains. Grains such as rice, wild rice, sweet rice, basmati, barley, corn, all the grains, and the wheat. Let's take wheat for an example. Wheat is, as a whole grain, is a small brown berry. We love those. We eat them. Those who are non-gluten enjoy the wheat. And there are all kinds of wheat, ancient wheat that often doesn't cause people to have reactions if they are non-gluten. Grains such as, there's one called einkorn, there's one called, spelt. There are many kinds of wheat. And I know wheat is part of the main grain in Israel and in the Mideast. So we can eat the berry, which you need to soak and then boil. It makes a delicious salad, and farro is another form of the wheat. Then wheat is ground up. We're very used to that because we eat bread. I personally can't eat a lot of bread. It makes me gain weight. So I avoid bread. I adore it. I adore the Ezekiel sprouted bread and the other sprouted breads. I just, who doesn't, really? Who doesn't? So when you grind a grain, it does break down the energy of the grain. And then the grain can be made into bread. It can be made into crackers, and it can be made into pretzels. Hard preparation of the wheat. So if you want a more balanced grain, you would boil it, and sometimes we pressure cook it. I don't know in Israel if you use the pressure cooker very much, but here in the cooler climates, we like pressure cooked beans, for instance. They break down beautifully. I mean, they become tender, and we sometimes pressure cook grains. So we can choose to be more balanced by cooking our grains with water, which again is moist. So you have a combination of the high fiber grain and the water that's opened them up. So your elimination is fabulous. You get the high fiber and the moisture. So in order to have good elimination every day, which is vitally, vitally important, by eating high fiber vegetables, whole grains, and beans, our elimination is really excellent. And I'll ask Gnat later if she can verify that, because I'm saying it in a humorous way, but our daily elimination is just vital for our health. And actually, if we're constipated, and which is it's caused by dryness, it's caused by low fiber foods. By the way, meat has 0 fiber. Animal food has 0 fiber. Dairy has 0 fiber. So these foods that are high fat with no fiber are really a combination to create constipation. And we're not afraid to talk about our elimination. Probably you're not either, but it's very important to have that combination of fiber and moisture and fresh vitamins and minerals that keep the intestines clear. Meat and dairy can collect in the pockets of your intestines, which are very convoluted. Look at the anatomy of the human intestines. They're very convoluted. They actually go up. Your food has to actually go up in the large intestines and over and down the transverse colon. And so you will gain wonderful movements in eating balanced with the whole grains, beans, and vegetables, salads, all the beautiful salads they have in Israel. I'm sure I always see beautiful lettuces and tomatoes, and of course olives and lemons, and lemon for flavor. So there's a big movement I hear in Israel for more vegetarian and more vegan eating. So I think that's extremely smart. It's ecological, and it's much more humane. We do not need to eat animal food for our protein. There's as much protein in a cup of lentils as there is a hamburger. So we don't need to eat the animals and put these poor creatures through what they go through. So we have.
Did you know that Israel is the #1 vegan per capita country in the world? More than India. We are the vegan capital.
Wow. I'm extremely impressed. I think it's a very intelligent way to eat, and that's wonderful. Wonderful.
Yeah.
And speaking of India, which is generally more vegetarian, they do eat dairy there, but the Indians have the lowest rate of Alzheimer's. And that's a crucial statistic, because look at how they eat, more vegetarian. And they also live in a hot, dry climate, most of them, although India, I understand, has some very cold areas. But the diet is crucial for the development of dementia and Alzheimer's. When the veins get clogged by the fat of meat and dairy, the blood doesn't flow, the oxygen doesn't get to the brain. So hooray for Israel, eating more vegan. And I understand you're utilizing more solar power, which, my goodness, if there's any place that can be solar, it's there. And all of this makes intelligent living and balanced living. America cannot any longer afford this ill health that we're going through. So I won't dwell on America right now, because we're going through a lot of extremes here. But I'm glad to hear Israel's made these smart decisions. So, and veganism is growing in the United States too. So, hooray. All right. So, I have about 10 more minutes, right, Gnat? Okay. So I'd like to mention a few more foods in the spectrum. I have actually this chart that I'm looking at now. It's called the energy chart. At the top is, you see the color blue, which is cooling. These are yin. My husband made this genius chart in the 70s, actually. And the cooling foods, again, are the fruits and vegetables. And then you go down in the middle are the whole grains, the beans, and the vegetables. There are more yin vegetables like lettuce, and there are more yang vegetables like carrots. We need both. We need the green vegetables, which in macrobiotics, we eat every meal, some kind of green vegetable. If not kale or collards or bok choy or broccoli, it's parsley garnish or parsley in our grains like tabbouleh. Green vegetables are extremely cleansing for the blood and strengthening. That's the thing about eating well. You get strong and energetic, but you're also relaxed. You're more patient. You can listen to people. You can look out at nature. You can take those lovely pauses where you relax. So we have those foods in the center. Included in those would be seeds, sesame seeds, sunflower, pumpkin seeds, which are those power foods that add tremendous amounts of nutrients. We usually roast up a pan of sunflower seeds every week, or pumpkin seeds, or both. We roast sesame seeds and grind them and have them on our table every day. We add these power foods to our meals. So also included in this would be other yin vegetables like sprouts. Sprouts have hundreds of times more nutrients. We can sprout beans, we can sprout green vegetables, we can sprout all kinds of seeds, and it's very easy. You can do it on your kitchen counter. There are wonderful websites that teach you how to do that. Very easy. We eat bean products like tofu and tempeh. Some of my favorite, tempeh salad and tofu salad, which mimic the egg salad that I used to grow up with. By the way, one of my past illnesses was my monthly cycle. It was very painful. And through my whole early life, from the time I was in high school till through college. And some of you can relate to that. I used to eat a lot of eggs. Eggs are extremely young and contracting. For women, they can affect the reproductive organs very, very much. They cause contractions and tightness. They're very high in cholesterol. I know they're delicious, and just look at the quantity you're eating if you are eating eggs. They're very, very strong energy. Men who eat too many eggs can be more prone to prostate cancer. Diseases in the lower body and the reproductive organs are more yang cause from meat, hard cheese, and eggs. Diseases in the upper body, the breast and the brain, are from more yin causes. So you can look at yin and yang in disease development. One of my favorite books is my teacher Michio Kushi's last book that he wrote, The Macrobiotic Path to Total Health. You can look up illnesses, headaches, constipation, any kind of emotional problem, and there's an explanation of the dietary cause of that. Diet is not everything. Environment and people's past history affects disease as well. So, but I'm just focusing on food for a few minutes. Also, other foods that are more in the balanced would be say pasta, grains that have been ground but that you boil, that are very delicious. Noodles and pasta, everything. Wheat pasta. I've discovered delicious quinoa brown rice pasta. That's fabulous. And noodles and buckwheat noodles, kasha. These are more heat producing and seem to be more balanced in cooler times or for the evening, or if you have a big job the next day, a physical job. Buckwheat is extremely strengthening. Of course, the Russians ate a lot of buckwheat and kasha, and it does have a very strong effect, but it's sometimes needed. We need that sometimes. Then when we go down to the more yang foods, we go into fish. The more yin fish is the white fish, and the more yang fish would be the red fish, the tuna and the salmon. So each would have a different effect, and how much we eat has a different effect. You can eat 2 ounces of fish, which would be like 2 fingers, or 4 ounces, which is the typical recommended amounts of fish if you do eat fish. And it gives you totally different effects, how much you eat. So quantity changes the quality. Then as you go down the spectrum, more yang than fish would be chicken, and then more yang than chicken would be dark red meat. It would be beef, for instance, and the hard cheeses. We have many kinds of cheeses in the world. We have the hard cheeses like the cheddar that's in a block. That is just pure hard fats with a lot of salt in it. So it will give you a more tightening yang effect on your health. Then we have soft cheeses like cream cheese, and then we have yogurt, which is the other spectrum of yin. And then we have ice cream, which is a combination of dairy, like milk, with sugar, which is very, very yin. So if you see that the foods that I'm mentioning are all on a spectrum, remember the more yang food you eat, the salty animal food, you're going to want more sugar and more sweets, and you can get into also alcohol, which we should mention, because people who just crave alcohol have generally become so contracted inside, too busy, dehydrated, too young, perhaps too aggressive, and or have inner tension. The alcohol relaxes that tension. So let's eat in a way where we can avoid that tension, and we'll find that we don't really need that glass of wine, or we don't need that cocktail, or the 2 cocktails, or the 3 cocktails, or the 4 beers. Look at what you're eating if you have intense cravings for sugar or alcohol. When I say sugar, I'm speaking of refined white sugar made from sugar cane or sugar beets. It's extremely weakening. It's one of the main causes of diabetes, although some diabetes organizations say sugar has nothing to do with diabetes. It really does. So as I come to the end of this talk, I just want you to know that you have the power to get in your driver's seat and steer. If you want to use that analogy, use yin and yang as a compass, as a way of saying, am I too tight? Am I too lazy today? Am I too aggressive with my neighbor, with my friends, with my partner? How many divorces have happened because partners were out of balance? So I appreciate Ganat for inviting me today. I'm very honored to be here. I send you our love from the US and our friendship. And remember, eating well is for life. So L'chaim.
Ah, bravo.